Now that we've mastered Boolean expressions, we're ready to add another trick up our sleeve, and that's going to be logical operators. They're going to allow us to make even more complex expressions, chain them together, and modify them when we need to. So let's take a look at what exactly these operators do and what they look like. So logical operators are symbols used to combine or modify Boolean expressions, producing a single true or false result. So these logical operators are going to make our expressions a lot longer, a lot more complicated. But at the end of the day, the whole expression doesn't matter how many operators you have. It's either going to be true or false, the entire thing. So it's something to remember. They're going to look kind of complicated as we go along, but just remember, at the end of the day, the whole thing is either going to be true or false. That's going to be kind of our task in the quiz, in the labs, and the assignments, right? Trying to figure out, how do I make this true? How do I make this false? All right. So these operators help you evaluate multiple conditions at the same time. Let's first take a look at an operator that modifies Boolean expressions, and that's the not operator. So the not operator, it's an exclamation point, and you put it in front of a Boolean variable, a Boolean value, or a Boolean expression, and all that it's going to do is reverse that value. It's going to flip it. It's going to turn it into its opposite value. So let's take a look at this example right here. So it says not a greater than 0. Let's give a and b some made up values here. So we're going to go int a is equal to 10. We're going to go int b is equal to -5. So we're going to work with these made up values throughout these examples just to test out what these expressions would be. All right, so let's start with the first one. So a greater than 0. Well, I go here to my declaration. A is 10. Is 10 greater than 0? Yeah, that checks out. Let me put a little check mark. Got to use my little annotation tools. So check mark. So this would evaluate to true, except the operator on the outside, the not operator, is going to reverse the value. So this is no longer true because it's going to reverse the inside of the parentheses, and the reverse of true is going to be false. So we're going to put a little X there. So yeah, this whole expression turns out to be false, which can be a little confusing, right? But that's exactly what the not operator is supposed to do. Now, why would you ever need an operator to reverse your Boolean value? Well, say you had a variable called is logged in. You could certainly have another variable called logged out, but it might be easier just to represent that state of being logged out as not logged in. So you put the exclamation point in front of your is logged in variable. Boom, you're now representing the logged out state. So rather than creating a whole new variable, right, taking up extra memory in your code, you could always just use the not operator. So yeah, use at your own discretion. All right, let's continue. So let's look at the and operator. So and operator, the symbol is the double ampersand. So you might have seen this symbol before, and the way that we see it in English and media and text throughout, right, is to represent and, right. We want to say father and son, right. We'll use that symbol. When programming, when we want to say and, this expression and this expression, when we want to evaluate them together and chain them together, we use a double ampersand. And when we're chaining expressions together with an and, both expressions must be true. So with the ampersand, you're going to have an expression on the left and an expression on the right. Now, of course, these could be, nested. We could have an expression inside of another expression. We'll take a look at that later on in some of the future slides. All right, so let's take a look at this simple example and see if this evaluates to true or to false. Well, we're going to start with our a greater than 0. So a greater than 0. Well, we already verified that that's true because 10 is greater than 0. So I'm going to put a little check mark there. All right, now we're going to check the right side. Is b greater than 0? Well, b is -5. -5 is not greater than 0. So this side of the expression evaluates to false. Now, the thing about and, if we read the description, is both sides, both conditions need to be true so that the whole thing returns true. Because both sides are not true, then the entire expression becomes false. even though one side was true. That's not enough for an AND expression. Both sides must be true. So if the left side is true, but the right side is false, or maybe the left side is false, but the right side is true, that's not enough. Both have to be true for the expression to be true. If any other situation where you have one of them false, doesn't matter which side, then the whole thing becomes false. Yeah, and very, very strict. Let's move on to the OR operator. So OR is going to do something similar to the AND. It's going to chain two expressions together, but it's going to look a lot different, right? Different operator. So for OR, we use the symbol here. The name of that symbol is, let me double check. So it looks like it's called the vertical bar. Colloquially, so some programmers will call this, when you use two vertical bars together, a double pipe. I just remember it as OR, right? Because that's how we use it in programming. So yeah, that just for your information is shift, and then that's going to be backslash. So that's next to your curly braces to the right of the O and P on your keyboard. So you hold shift, backslash, you'll get your vertical bar. Kind of an obscure symbol for sure. But now you'll be able to use it now that you're a programmer. So returns true if either one of the conditions is true. So that's what OR means, right? Either or. We only need one of them to be true. So that's exactly what the OR operator does with these expressions. So as long as one of them is true, then the whole thing evaluates the true. So let's check it out. Well, we already, used these numbers, so we already know a greater than 0 is true from our previous example, and we know that b greater than 0 is false. Well, the thing about the OR operator, we already said, as long as one of the conditions is true, then the whole thing is going to return true. So the evaluation or the result of this entire expression is going to be true. And yeah, those are our operators. There's only 3 logical operators. Now, why is it so complex, right? Why did I save this for another lesson? Well, because the expressions themselves can get complicated. And you can actually put an expression inside of another expression. And you could nest, now that's not good practice, right? To write a giant expression, right, in your code. You usually want to break that down into smaller variables or smaller comparisons. But, sometimes the situation necessitates it and you got to go with something really long. All right, so let's see. Let's take a look at some examples, right? So we can continue to practice and wrap our head around how these operators work.